Let me ask you something. How many goals have you set that just slowly faded out? It's not because you lack motivation. It's not because you're lazy. It's because you don't have a system for execution. That's exactly why we built the goal getting app, the execution system for Christian for done drifting. Inside the app, you don't juggle 10 goals. You lock in one clear 90-day focus. Then we help you break it into weekly needle moving actions, stay consistent with daily execution, and actually follow through, even when life gets busy. This isn't about doing more. It's about finally finishing what you start. Clarity, execution, momentum. If you're ready to stop drifting and actually move forward, go to goalgetting.app/reset and lock in your next 90 days today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Profitable Christian Business. I'm your host, Greathouse, and I am very pleased today to have who I think will become a new friend of mine, Dr. David Jones. We just met as of this podcast, but I already know based on my research about him, which you'll learn about in my introduction here in a minute, that he is someone that I'd like to get to know more, and you're going to get to know more of through this episode. Today's episode is a powerful conversation about vision, leadership, and mental performance through a Christian lens. My guest today is Dr. David Jones, founder of M is Good, one of the longest standing Christian marketing agencies in the world. David spent more than 2 decades helping organizations communicate their vision clearly, build strong brands, and align teams and purposes. But his journey to that work is anything but typical. Before building a globally recognized Christian marketing agency, Dave played professional hockey across Europe, competing in countries like Luxembourg, Russia, Slovakia, Switzerland, and Germany. That experience shaped how he thinks about performance, leadership, and mental toughness. Today, in addition to leading M is Good, Dave works as a sports and performance psychology consultant, helping elite athletes and executives unlock peak performance through mental toughness training systems. His clients include athletes from the NFL, NHL, CrossFit, and collegiate sports, as well as leaders and organizations looking to perform at their highest level. In this conversation, we're going to talk about why so many leaders struggle to communicate vision clearly, the connection between mental performance and leadership, how Christian organizations can build brands that truly reflect their mission, and what it really takes to build a powerful vision that people will rally around. If you're a Christian entrepreneur, leader, or founder trying to lead with clarity and conviction, this episode will give you a lot to think about. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, man. Who's this guy you're having on? Sounds amazing.
He is pretty amazing. So one of the things that really fascinated me right off the jump was I love the merge of athletics and business, right? And to know that you played hockey, just full disclosure, I'm not much of a hockey fan. I like college football. That's kind of my thing.
Okay.
But I love the mindset, especially to get to elite levels in athletics that it takes. So you spent years playing professional hockey across Europe before becoming Christian marketing leader. What's the most unexpected lesson hockey taught you about leadership or life?
The most unexpected lesson. I think it's a lesson that resonates with us all, honestly. It's something that I love to coach on. It's called peaks and valleys. Life isn't awesome all the time. Social media will tell us differently. And so, when we're in a peak, that's awesome. But guess what's going to happen? You're going to go in a valley. It stinks to be in a valley, but guess what? You're going to go on a peak. And so, most unexpected is I just thought, I guess, in my 20s and 30s that life could be awesome all the time. And that's just how it works, and I'll get to that awesome state and I'll reach utopia and things will be amazing. Yeah. So that's the most unexpected is that, the destiny of a Christian really is that we're to glorify him with our talents and our abilities. And the journey is the destination. And we are in peaks and valleys, and how we manage our stress and how we manage our anxiety is part of the game that we're playing. And I guess that's how I'd answer that.
No, I love that. And I love how you frame that everyone puts their best foot forward on social media, right?
Right.
Even when they're in the valleys, you don't get, some people will let you know, like will be that authentic and let you peek behind, when things aren't so good. So I love how you frame that because I think a lot of people don't realize Um, just the ebb and flow of life is not represented in social media as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a Christian business owner, or Christian business leader, whether it's a nonprofit or for profit, we have things that, excuse me, are going great, sometimes and sometimes not. And so I kind of look at the journey as, that we gotta glorify him in all situations, right? And in the peaks and in the valleys. And so how do we do that? And so what I'm really excited about is my next book that's coming out that's going to identify these toxic motivators. And I think we're going to talk about that, but we can wait or I can get into it now.
Well, let's just see. You and I talked before we start airing. Let's see where the Lord takes us, right?
Yeah.
I kind of want to sit here for a minute
Yeah.
because um, I think we can go a little bit deeper on this part of the conversation. And what I really want to get to is uh, God shapes us, right? I think the hard thing to do as Christians is to praise the Lord for the valleys, for the struggles,
Right.
right? When often we should be,
Hmm.
because
So
it's
hard to do though. It's just
who we come out being on the other side, um,
yeah.
for Him, right?
Right. Yeah, I just think it's just super hard, because especially in the valley, I have this term, not my term, but one of the terms I studied through my doctorate is called emotional intelligence. And
Mm,
so when we're in the valley, it's very much a survival space. It could be, financially, well, mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. And when you're in survivor mode, it's all about you, which means you're low emotional intelligence. Everything goes through you, and so you're very emotional. And so it's hard. It's almost counterproductive to how we're built as humans, is that, that we want to survive and we want to live. And so it becomes all about us in those valleys. And so that's where I think, the Lord really says, okay, here's the test, you know?
yeah. Those of you that have watched episodes of this before, you may remember recently I had Bradley Hawkins on, and Bradley Hawkins, he kind of resonates this. Is he had he had $1 billion under management in his financial firm,
Well,
and it all collapsed.
mm,
And you talk about peaks and valleys, and just how he talked about his transformation of who God allowed him to become, from that, and it was just amazing. So, yeah, awesome.
yeah. So, those motivators in the valley are tough, and so being able to recognize that you're in a valley, be okay with it, know that there's a bigger plan for your life. There is multiple ways out, not just one, because I think that's what the adversary wants us to do is live in isolation and, know that there's only one doorway, and which is just not true. The room is in God's economy, I believe that the room is huge.
Mm,
There's
for sure.
multiple doors, when you're in that living in that poverty mindset or that fixed mindset, there's a very small room and there's only one way out, which to me is a lie.
Yeah, I love when we go deep at the very beginning of the podcast, but I'm gonna bring us back up to the
Okay.
surface a little bit.
All right.
Let's talk about travel a little bit because you've been around the world,
Yeah.
playing hockey, and who knows, what other adventures have taken you around the world. But do you have a favorite place or um, a culture that inspired you or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I like to tell people I'm a right wing Bible toting gun carrying Christian. That's who I am, so I love America. I really do. But going outside of America and living in Germany for 4 years and seeing what that's like, I really enjoy the German people and the
Mm,
culture there. And just really not living in America for that time really opened my eyes to an America that I probably could never have seen. And I was, when you look at it through another nation's lens, it's different. And so I would say Germany. I also love London, England. That was cool
really?
being there for a little while. Yeah. But I'm an American. This is home for me. I love to travel and see other stuff. In the fall, I'm going to Scotland. That'll be interesting. But for the most part, I love America, man.
Nice. I would identify just like you did. So, this question, just to talk about that a little bit further, when you talk about seeing it from a different lens, I could definitely get the appreciation once you've been American and you go somewhere else, the appreciation for being American again.
Yeah.
But also, the perspective, like, do you find that some of these other cultures have a negative perception based on what they don't know about America?
Yeah, so this is just me, I lived in Germany for 4 years, and, this was in my early 20s, and, it really just opened my eyes on, just how oh, man, I don't know if I wanna say this, but, like, uh, um,
We can
on the
edit it
world's
later if you want to take it back.
oh, no, I'll just say it. I mean, I just feel like, I love America, and I love Americans, but I just, saw that we're fat, dumb, and happy. Like, we have no clue of, I think if you ask 10 people on the street, 9 out of 10 of them can't name 2 other countries in the world.
Right.
We're the bully on the block. I mean, we just do what we want when we wanna do it, and that through, in this case, when I was living in Germany, when Bill Clinton was president, and that was that whole Monica Lewinsky thing was going down, and, it's just embarrassing. It was just embarrassing that the leader of the free world is having sexual relations with an intern. It's just like,
Yeah.
what is America doing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. This isn't, and so I don't know. I just didn't live in America in that time. I saw it through the German lens, and it was just disappointing. And people didn't really care, and we just got our way. And what happened out of that? Nothing really. And just
Mhm.
just abuse of power, the way I looked at it. And from the Germans' perspective, it was like, gosh, these guys are just not very smart. And the things that we could be doing that we're not doing, and the things that we are doing, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I don't know that I would have seen that if I was living in America during those times.
Yeah. And this is not a political podcast. We could go off the
Yeah.
rails with politics, but let's keep this. Let's keep the Holy Spirit. Let us keep
Yeah.
guiding us. Not go down that rabbit hole that could be. Um, so my next question is: when you're not building brands or coaching athletes, what's something that you like to do?
Oh, I mean, I love to play golf. I
Oh,
love
nice.
personal development. I think right now in my phase of life, because I've, played hockey and I did the CrossFit thing, and, hockey is hard on your body, and so is CrossFit. I think, the next thing that, at least what's in my purview, is, the mental, emotional, physical progression in personal development. And I feel like golf does that. I feel like if you're not really focused in the moment, it's going to show up in a bad shot. Like everything just comes out in the shot if you're not focused or you don't have enough repetition behind. So I've always chased development. I love it. My doctorate was a terminal degree and, chasing academic, psychology. And, I achieved that, which is huge. Took me 13 years. But just seeing what was out there on the academic side, for sports psychology was really cool and interesting. It was an awesome growth period. And I still continue to read a lot of sports psychology journals. And so just chasing peak performance. I think, Doug, at one day we're all going to answer the call, right? And answering the call means well done, good and faithful servant. And I just have this image of, God of, like you die, you go to heaven. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I just have this kind of idea that you're standing in front of Jesus, and he says, here's who I created you to be, and here's who you are. And like that delta, I just hope there's not a delta there. You know what I mean? Like if it's a
Yeah.
big delta. So I just love the idea of become a better version of me every single day.
Yeah. Um,
That means eating right, exercising, writing, that's what I'm into.
we we all. I think there'll be a gap for almost everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe not Billy Graham, but
Yeah.
there'll be a little bit of gap for
Yeah.
everybody because we're all fall short of
Yeah.
the glory of Jesus, right? But just
Sure.
like you, I hope that the gap is not wide.
Right.
But I love that. I love that the way you presented that and pictured that. Real quick question: do you have a favorite athlete?
Well, I'm a hockey guy. So, my family have two boys. They're 21 and 19 now, and we talk about, you know, um, the best athletes in the world. And to me, like, this has a kind of a. It's not about necessarily, the amount of goals or assists or hoops or speed or time or whatever. To me, it's yes, you have to dominate your sport, but you also have to be an ambassador in the community.
Mm,
And so for me, it's Wayne Gretzky. Like,
yeah,
you just don't see Wayne Gretzky out there doing dumb things like you see with other athletes. So being an ambassador for the sport and truly being, a legacy player means that, you know, you're just not doing dumb stuff. And
yeah,
so that eliminates a lot of athletes. I think Wayne Gretzky is the antithesis of, somebody who is a true ambassador for sport and definitely for hockey.
yeah. I grew up a Florida State Seminoles fan back in the
Okay.
Bobby Bowden days,
Yep.
right? And I thought Bobby Bowden was one of those guys. And then some of not all of the athletes that came through Florida State. I think of the Derek Brooks of the world, Warwick Dunn, who just went out and served the community so well. And that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons that I was such a fan. And now I live in the upstate of South Carolina, so I'm a Clemson fan. So Dabo Sweeney, I think, represents a lot of that good character, right? And tries
Yeah.
to instill that in his athletes as well. Um, that's a reason I'm a Clemson fan now.
I think about what Gretzky did. I don't know if you know his stats. 2,857 or 56 points in his career. Nobody's ever going to catch him. Nobody. Now, Ovechkin just beat his scoring title, but as far as overall points, there's no one even close. I think Ron Francis is the closest with like 1,700 points, something like that. He'd have to play another 20 years to catch Gretzky. There's no other athlete in any other sport that has dominated the sport like Gretzky did. And, I can hear the
Yeah,
haters now going, well, they couldn't get the puck off the ice and they had old skates and, all that mess. But, he just dominated the sport for 20 some years and nobody's going to catch him. I mean, that's it.
yeah.
It's
You
incredible.
seem like you're in a similar generation that I am. I haven't guessed your age yet, but we seem to like we were privileged. We had Michael Jordan and
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky at the same time, like
Yeah.
the two goats of their individual sports, or it's not
Mhm.
an individual sport, but of their sports. It was pretty amazing time to
It
be
really
a sports fan.
was. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit to business. I
Okay.
want to ask uh, one of our main questions of the Brothel Christian Business, and that is our fill in the blank question.
Okay.
And so your fill in the blank question is: the biggest mistake Christian leaders make when building a brand is blank.
Yeah. So, I kind of gravitate towards vision. It's got to be short, portable, easy to understand, memorable, inspiring statement. A lot of times we get thrown into a leadership or we grow the organization to a point where we don't know what it is. I think it's always important to go back and look at that and then drive it into the culture and stay clean and concise. And then right behind that is this brand promise of here's exactly what we're going to do well and then execute that well. And, really the brand promise is, in its structure itself, you got to do it 1,000% of the time. Like it just can't be something you think about. It's like walking. And so I think a lot of times, we build these brands and, we pivot too soon or we don't know where we're going. And, I've stood up a lot of brands over the last 25 years and sometimes I've given up on them too early. And really, it wasn't the brand or the messaging. It was that this algorithm out there is so incredibly intuitive. And the algorithm I'm talking about is really the one that's built by Amazon to get us to spend.
Mm.
Like the amount of impressions an American gets in America every single day is right about 17,000 impressions a day. We are bombarded with retargeting. And so, if you're a Christian leader out there listening to this podcast, I want to encourage you to stay focused in the vision, but create enough top of the funnel impressions to drive, right? Just to drive the whatever you're trying to do, whether it's a purchase or a donation or get somebody to go to church. We just don't create enough top of the funnel impressions, and we give up, and we change and we change and we change. And really, it's nobody's heard your message. Sorry, but you got to put some money behind the top of the funnel.
We have rewind moments. I call them rewind moments on the show. We might have several more coming up, but
Yeah.
that is one of those rewind moments. Rewind and listen to everything that Dr. Dave just said, because I think a lot of people miss that. They give up too soon. They they just have not enough people have seen them, and maybe it's uh, a revenue block. That they just haven't put enough revenue behind the marketing in order to
Hmm.
get people to see it, uh, or it's just a time thing that they just haven't given enough time.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to kind of rewind myself into a little bit of your statement too about vision, because a lot of times I feel like there's companies out there that will just slap vision up on a wall, but they don't really embody it.
Hmm.
So, can you talk about what it takes a little bit to really embody the vision?
Yeah. So when R7 rolled out years ago, this is our framework. Um, I had Tom Adama, who was mentoring me, and Tom was the right hand man of John Maxwell at the time. And so he was really, the architect behind vision, and he mentored me. And the three things he said were there's three problems with vision. Number one, you don't have it. Two, you don't believe it. And three, you're not communicating it. So just an example, again, this is not to make this a political statement, but if we go back to 2008 and we look at Obama's campaign, his campaign was change yes we can. And everything was about change yes we can, and he broadcasted that everywhere, right? And he rallied the nation, perhaps the world, behind that vision. We fast forward now to Donald Trump, and we all know what it is, right? Make America great again. And so this top of the funnel short easy message is just driving everything. Now how he's doing that, same thing with Obama, same thing with Trump, they don't know how. They don't have a clue, right? But they're figuring it out as they go. So really the vision's the why. And then the mission is the what, where, when, and how. And so this vision statement, I kind of look at it like I think we are from the same generation, but remember there was Batman in the Batman and Robin cartoons,
Mhm.
and whenever there was a problem, the commissioner would go to the top of the building and flash the Batman logo into the sky, and Batman would miraculously appear. And so this is what we need to do as our vision statement. It's kind of like that Batman signal in the skies. We have to put it out there and we have to communicate it. And we're going to get punched in the face. It's not going to work. People are going to say no, but they may know this person, may know that person. And so you just drive it, drive it, drive it to the point where you're just exhausted. Then you drive it some more. I don't think God puts a vision in your heart without the resources available to you to accomplish that vision. I think our God is sovereign. He loves us and he wants us to grow and flourish. So if you have something in your heart that's from him, that would be mean. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be mean to give you a vision, not have any of the resources around. Go figure it out. Like, I just don't think our God works that way.
Yeah. Uh, I tell everybody, and I run a morning Bible study every Friday morning, and God has called me to do that. And even though I'm not a chapter and verse guy, I know, like, I can tell you the verse, but I can't tell you what chapter it's in. All right,
Yeah,
there's a verse that
I'm the same way. Yeah.
you pray for wisdom, and it'll be given to you. It's not. It might be given to you. It will be given to you. So just kind of along the same lines. It's not um, whether God He wants to give it to you,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That's
So
it.
so I want to know a little bit more about the vision behind. M is Good, how it got started, and like why did you feel the need to start? Like, what gap were you seeing in Christian marketing at the time, and just how did that all evolve?
Yeah, so I came out of playing pro hockey in Europe and I went to corporate America. You know, when you're playing pro hockey, it's like, it's a different schedule than come to work from 9 to 5 and, you're allowed 30 minutes of lunch or whatever. And so I got into corporate America and it just didn't work. I was like, Lord, what do you have for my life? Because this isn't like I need, I want to feel empowered and fulfilled. And so I prayed a prayer right there at my desk, and I was working for a TV station. I saw this list of Christian clients on the TV station, and I didn't hear an audible voice. I go, oh man, I'll just start an ad agency. What do I call it? And again, I didn't hear like a voice, but I just marketing ministries. And I was like, marketing ministries. That's a really dumb name. And so, like marketing and ministries too. And so I got a lawyer, and the lawyer basically came back and said, it's available. And I was like, oh, maybe the Lord isn't so dumb after all. So I incorporated the name in November of 2001. And so at the time, Marketing Ministries was, kind of a liaison between the church and television broadcast. So we were media buyers.
Okay,
And so it wasn't until 2013 where I pivot the company to a digital agency and I changed the name from Marketing Ministries to M is Good. So I tell people, I love the halo and the M. So I tell people that, M is Good could be whatever you want. M it could be money, it could be ministries, it could be whatever. Thing.
miracles.
Miracles. Yeah, it could be whatever you want. So it's kind of that juxtaposed name like we see in the marketplace now, like Geico. What's a Geico? Geico is government employee insurance company, but they use a gecko to say Geico. What's a Verizon? Nobody knows what a Verizon is.
Right.
And so we were kind of going in that route of a more fun juxtaposed name.
And is I see your hat. Is North Carolina part of the logo?
It is in this hat, in this version of it. Yeah. Yeah. But normally, no, it's just a logo. But yeah.
Okay, nice, nice. Let's talk about what you do with leaders and athletes around the psychology coaching.
Yeah.
So, how does faith change the way you teach people around handling pressure, failure, success, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a philosophy here, obviously, that when we look at Ephesians 6, we're to put on the armor of God, right, and the breastplate of righteousness. And so I look at that as going to war, like like when we're in a battle. That's why I do well with combat sports, um, with athletes. So we as Christians have to glorify Him, and so we got to be prepared mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And so, what does that preparation look like? I call it plan to win. I have these shirts that say plan to win. And just recently I struck out win and say plan to dominate, because, as a Christian, I believe that we're called to glorify him, and our Lord's awesome and he's prepared and he's thought of everything, and just
That's
go
right.
outside and see how amazing it is outside. And so as we are built in his image, I believe that we should, perform at our best. So whether it's an executive or an athlete, what are we doing to plan to win? And so then that opens up the door then to, okay, what am I eating? How am I exercising? What am I reading? Am I prepared? Am I not prepared? Am I the fastest guy on the ice? Am I the slowest guy on the ice? Am I supposed to be fast? If I am fast, then how are we preparing to be fast? And so we kind of go down this path. Does that answer the question? I think.
It does. And I love God is so awesome because this theme, I know you don't know this, but the theme of the armor of God has been coming up
Mm,
for the last few weeks, like in Bible studies and conversation. So I really feel like for me, God wants that focus of putting on
yeah.
the armor of God in the way that I'm showing up, putting on the armor of God and encouraging others to do the same thing. So I just it was just interesting that you brought that up in the middle of this episode because I feel like it's intertwined and God just works so beautifully. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so It's fun. It's fun to think about it that way, right? Like, where is my vulnerability? I need to work on that. That's a
Mhm.
growth mindset. That's fun. That's like saying, okay, I need to. This is where these toxic motivators come in, I believe, because okay, what if I know the enemy? Like in with hockey, it's easy because facing off against somebody or a team, or basketball, football, same thing, baseball. It's like, okay, what do they do well? What don't they do well? And if there's a vulnerability there, then I need to know what it is so that we can win. And so I look at it the same way in terms of like the adversary. Like the adversary's got a game and he's playing it really well. And so these toxic motivators, I believe, is poking the adversary, right? And saying, okay, I can see you fear. I can see you lust. I can see you anger and I see you pride. I call this flap. Like, what's your flap? If I know that I have lustful thoughts, not necessarily sexual lust, it could be, but like lustful things of a bigger house, a faster boat, a faster car, multiple cars, and that's getting me and keep me in financial bondage. And I could say, okay, adversary, you're not going to get me on this. I'm not going to go spend that money. I am going to be, playing better. That to me is glorifying the Lord, is saying, okay, I am recognizing him. I'm and recognizing the adversary, and I'm being mindful about where I am vulnerable. This is my opponent I'm against.
Yeah, that's so good. One of the other things that I thought about while you were saying that is how these themes, when people say, I don't know how the relationship with the Lord, I don't hear the Lord, right? You kind of brought up earlier that you didn't feel an audible, you didn't have an audible tone, but you knew it was from the Lord, right? And I
Yeah.
feel like these type of themes. So if I encourage anyone, if you start to feel a theme like God is interjecting, like bringing like these type of conversations, or you keep hearing the same things over and over, that is actually the Lord speaking to you.
Yeah.
You're just not realizing it. You just got to get in tune, right?
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So, um, so let's dive into power, like the difference between a powerful brand and kind of just a ho hum brand, if you will.
Yeah.
So, what
I love
separates a
this.
brand that inspires people from one that they will just ignore?
Yeah. So I wrote an article, maybe we can include it. It's called The
Yes.
Power of Thank You. So the Power of Thank You I wrote a couple years ago. And you and I grew up in a generation where like, the thank you was somebody actually saying thank you. This was a great, experience. So they physically say that. We're in a different space now. The power of thank you now is in a star, 4 stars, 3 stars. Power of thank you now is people come back. We vote with our feet. So we like it, we come back. We don't, we leave. And so I think about a powerful brand is one that delivers on the expectation. I think of a weak brand is one that doesn't. I think of a weak brand is, the executives have never experienced their brand.
Mm.
A powerful brand, the executives have experienced their brand. They've put secret shoppers in the experience. A weak brand, they don't know the vision, right? They don't know what they're trying to achieve. A powerful brand is doing that and then some. And so the power of thank you really resonates with, are the executives thinking about every step of the consumer? This is a powerful statement. The organization is not the hero. The
That's right.
client, the donor, the first time guest, they are the hero. The organization is their guide. So when you, as an organizational leader, talk about yourself all the time, you're not the hero.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I'm not. I'm going to use. I'm trying to think about the best way to say this. Um, I know someone that their company is going through a leadership change, and they've had a very strong culture for a long number of years, and it's built on that concept, right? They don't call them customers; they call them members. They call them so they're they're more in tune to that customer journey, and now the leadership seems to be leveling that culture, and it's one of the things that it was built on. The person involved is just kind of like, I'm not sure. I like this direction.
Right.
So I guess maybe give some insights on what you feel like. Have you ever experienced that, like where a leadership would come in and maybe change the culture a little bit, and have you seen the positives or negatives on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think inherently there's two tenets of a human being. This is the pursuit of pleasure, the avoidance of pain. So when a new leadership comes in, it's like you can't take the culture from A to Z overnight. You got to go A, B, C, D, E, F, over time. And we've seen this happen, with the Bud Light,
Mm,
experience. We've seen this with the Cracker Barrel experience where this new person at the top says, "I'm going to flex right now." Like the Cracker Barrel thing gets me because it's like, okay, we're going to change the stores, we're going to change the logo, we're going to change all this stuff, and everybody's going to be happy with it because we've talked to 40 people, and those 40 people are the people who are doing the work. I don't know what the numbers are, but like she could have gotten her way if she just would have year 1 through 3 change the logo in some stores. Year 4, 5, and 6 change out, the restaurant theme and just kind of do it slowly. But she had to go on NBC and she had to tell everybody that she was doing everything right now. It's not gonna work. So we don't like change. We like pleasure. We like avoiding pain. And so new leadership's got to be seriously aware of this and make increment changes and bring people in to collaborate on those. It can't be their way. It's got to be, it's got to be a collaboration. So
yeah,
unless you're Elon Musk with Twitter and you just go, we're gonna clean house,
yeah,
I mean, that's another way of doing it. We're just gonna clean house, you know, and so yeah, that's another way to do it. If you don't want to spread it out over time, and you just want to bring in a whole nother thing. But I think they were really going from a liberal to a conservative sort of culture. And I don't think the liberal people were going to stick around anyway. So, it's probably better.
yeah. I
Clean
think
house.
there's underlying context in probably every situation of whether,
Yeah.
um, if you really like, that the culture's got, like, if it's a negative culture, you've got to level it
Right.
quickly
Right.
in order to scale on top of it. And I feel like that might have been the Twitter, what was going on there. I'd love to share one of our internal values with you and kind of get
Yeah.
your thoughts around it. One of the things that we are big proponents of is what I call value lead, right? We try and show value before even anyone does any business with us. We show value right away. Like we help them take one step forward, right? In whatever they're doing, so that we can build that know, like, and trust um, with them. So, um, have you had any experience with other companies doing that? What are your insights around that?
All right. So value leads, right? Like you want to value their values or your values with them.
Well, let me clarify. So, um, we have conversations with them. They want to accomplish X, right? Okay, let me help you take one. Let us as a company help you take one step forward into that, right? Just before you even with any other before you exchange value with us, right? We're giving you value, right?
Okay.
So let me help you take one step forward in that.
Okay.
So that kind of situation.
Yeah. So let me see if this will work. I'm a hockey guy. Okay. So if ESPN emails me about all the other sports and maybe every fifth email is hockey, is that a good experience for me?
Yeah.
No. But if the NHL network gets me and emails me on the insights of the NHL, is that a better experience? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of look at it as like if we're gonna do a lead magnet or we're gonna do something that's gonna give this consumer value, we really got to know who we're talking to
Mm.
because we may think that this is valuable, but it may not be.
Yeah, that's great insight. Isn't like, but we could probably talk for 20, 30 minutes about knowing your ideal client, right? So,
Yeah.
um, actually, let's sit here for a minute. So,
Okay.
there are probably many people listening or watching that that struggle with that. And we actually created a tool around this, believe it or not, that struggle to know exactly who their target market is. Can you give some practical steps that they can take to really understand who their target market is?
Yeah, so we would call this a target persona or the target avatar. So we actually build out an avatar for most of our clients to say, okay, here's household income, male, female, personal interests, in the Christian space. We look at, what kind of denomination they are, Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, evangelical. In the evangelical space, there's like four different categories of evangelical. And so we want to drive that and give that person a name and understand who we're talking to. And so this is a tough exercise. I'm sure you've done it before too. It's like, okay, who's your target audience? Is it male or female? And they go, well, it's really 50-50. And you go, okay, well, we're going to have to decide,
Mhm.
if it's male or female, because if you don't decide on that, and a lot of times when we look at the data, whether it's donor list or, just the last 5 people that have last 10 people that interact, it usually skews in the Christian space. It usually skews female. So I've done a lot of surveys, and people that are interacting with the church is usually 65 to 70% female. So if you're listening to this, I would just encourage you to really understand your avatar and then talk to that person and get as specific as possible. This is back to the toxic motivators because a lot of times leadership is fearful. Like you see these ads or these posters with everything on them. And to me, it's like, okay, this is fear. This is leadership's fearful that nobody ever is ever going to interact with their organization ever again. So we have to put everything on the poster. So when you're talking to both male and female, you're talking to nobody. It's back to my analogy of, if you're talking sports to me, I'm moderately interested. I'm going to unsubscribe or I'm just going to leave. In fact, I listen to the NHL network every day. And when they do a general sports update, I'm irritated because all I have to do is go over to Mad Dog Radio and get that. I don't want to. I want to hear hockey. Right. And so it used to be, Doug, and we lived in this where it was NBC, ABC, and CBS. And then you remember when Fox came and it was like, oh, Fox, they're going to do cartoons in prime time. That'll never work. The
Right.
young, hip broadcast
And meanwhile,
station
The Simpsons is still going.
is still going after 30 some years. Exactly. And so we had broadcast media years ago. And then we went from those 3 stations to 4 stations to cable, 600 stations. You didn't have to watch ESPN anymore. You could watch Speed Vision. You could just watch that, and then the NHL network and then the the NFL network. And then you remember the whole, with cable, you could buy the NFL package and just get NFL all the time. And then satellite came. And then everybody said, "Oh, VCRs are going away." And we're like, "What? That was the best thing made ever." And you could record. And
Yeah.
now here somebody said years ago, I remember 2010, people said, "Yeah, there's going to be a day where you don't have to have appointment television. You can just go and just watch it when you want to watch it. You can binge the whole season." That's going to happen. you know?
Yeah.
And so the days of broadcast are over. They've been over. And so you have to understand your audience. And this is what I was talking about earlier about the algorithm that Amazon built. It is so incredibly hyper targeted on the retargeting to get you to buy that item. Oh, and they know, man, it's so good. Right. And a lot of times it's helpful for us. Like, oh yeah, I do need that. They know more than we do. And so you have to your avatar has to be tight.
Yeah. I'm gonna call that a rewind moment too. It's just to rewind because I find in a lot of conversations that I have with businesses that are struggling, it's often they haven't that's a foundational thing. They haven't quite solved that, right? It's more than likely based on that fear. Their fear that if they don't try to appeal to everybody, they're not going to get business,
That's right.
which is exactly the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah. If you're unconvinced, A/B test. Do an ad
Mm,
for a male, do an ad for a female. And those are broad strokes of, you know, of targeting, but, like, it's gotta be way more targeted than that, like,
yeah.
way more targeted, like, down to personal interests.
So let's talk about alignment a little bit. So we've talked a little bit about mission, vision, and culture.
Yep.
How can a leader align all those things most effectively?
Well, I would say it's not easy, right? It's something that you have to think about all the time, and as you bring new people into your team, you have to think about it all the time. I kinda look at this sort of space as, like, you have a toddler, and your toddler, the Tommy Touch-all stage, where the kid's just walking around touching everything. This is that space of your marketing, like, your vision, your mission, how are you driving it? What's the experience? What's the feedback? We have a new product. How do they experience it? Like, it's constant. You have to think about it all the time, and you have to get feedback all the time. So, how do you do it? You pay attention, ask questions, drive it, look at it again and again and again, and think about it. And then I think this is the silver bullet of it all. There's not many silver bullets, but this one's a good one. It always works. Ask the people that are buying your product.
Yeah. So so true. That's so good. Awesome. Thank you
And
for
I
that.
and I and I say buy your product, like, loosely, because if you're a church, ask people, first time guests, what they experienced, and don't defend. Don't defend it. Understand it, right?
Yeah. That's we started going to our church that we go to now about 3 years ago. And it's time we thought we were going to go visit a lot of churches, right? But it just took going to this church and hearing the pastor speak one time, right?
Mm,
And I think we might have visited one or two churches before we went to this church, but we weren't visiting any other churches after this because um, we knew that he was preaching straight from the Bible, right? Um, and he was not skirting around sin, right? He called it out for what it is, and he was very relatable at the same time. So um, the worship service also felt like the Holy Spirit was in it. So that
yeah.
also was really good. But um, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like if he was to come and ask us, like, what was it that caught your attention about our church? Why did you decide to become members? Is because we feel like the Holy Spirit is here. We feel like you're um, preaching, from the Bible, and uh, the Holy Spirit is guiding you. Right.
Mm,
So
that's really good. And so that's what you were looking for, right? And so
yeah,
they delivered on that expectation, which is really cool. Some people may be more worship minded, like they have to have a killer worship team, and so that kind of feedback and, okay, where's the vision of the organization, and do we want to attract more Dougs? Is Doug our avatar and his family? Yes or no? You know, and so kind of looking at that experience and looking at where the leadership is going and saying, okay, we have a match here. Well, now let's go find 100 more Dougs.
yeah. I'll tell you that the pastor will give all the glory to God, but there's something that they're doing because when we joined, we joined probably at the beginning of the real big growth. But they were once a small church. I think 10, 10 years ago, they may have had 300 in their congregation.
Oh, wow.
We are three services now, and I think we're at like 2,500 people. And now we're building an extended campus in another city. Um, so they're attracting a lot of me's.
Okay. Awesome.
So
Yeah. That's great.
it's really really good. We love our church so much. So let's pivot just a second to failure. It's not when we're all going to fail at some point, right?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people fail, and that's kind of the end of it. They lose their
Mm,
confidence, and but but the people that I see really thrive are the people that fail and then rise from the ashes, kind of like what we talked about before. So, can you speak about how someone can rebuild their confidence after failure?
Yeah. So years ago, I heard Michael Jordan say this, and I've used this in my mental toughness training. He said, "I've never failed," and
Mm.
I thought, "Oh man, he's a narc. He's a narcissist." Like, like, and then he said, "You know what? I've never looked at it as fail or success. I've looked at everything as just a learning opportunity." And so I think that, as we learn, as we grow, and as we change, we're going to fail. That's part of the process. But if you have the short term outlook on it, oh, I failed, this is not going to do anything. I like to say that it's taken me 25 years to be an overnight success,
Mhm.
And so, I think that if you quit, you are failing. But if you look at it in terms of, okay, I'm learning as a opportunity growth mindset of, I tried this, it didn't work. I shouldn't probably do that again. And what hasn't worked over here in this particular moment probably won't work over there. So me jumping organizations or me jumping teams or me getting into the portal, and changing, is that really going to change or change everything? A different culture? It could. It definitely
Yeah.
could. But, looking at it from I'm here to glorify the Lord perspective, there is no silver bullet really, in terms of this has to work this one time. We just recently we're going to bring on a new client and they said we have 3 months. And I was like, or actually it was 3 weeks. They're like, "We have 3 weeks." And I was like, "Yeah, we're not interested. We're not interested. We'll pass."
Right.
Because the marketing, is for Easter. They want us to stand up a campaign for Easter and that was it. And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just not how we do work around here." Like your marketing of the church isn't gonna be successful or a failure based upon Easter. Marketing the church means marketing the kingdom of God over time. And so this Easter just happens to be one day on the calendar. What happens after Easter? We're more about the relationship and the collaboration and how we're growing and learning from each other over time to build out, something amazing in 6 to 12 months. 3 weeks? Good luck.
Yeah,
It's
there's a business lesson right there. Like, don't look for long-term impact in that short-term, you know, time frame, right?
yeah. I've had a lot of different couples over the years, husband wife combo that said, "Hey, we're going to mortgage the house and we're going to really go after this because we feel like God is calling us to this." And I've really said, you know, okay, I get that you're stepping out in faith. That's awesome, but this we can't really look at this as it's got to work in 3 months. Like, don't mortgage a second house. Let's look at for another way to increase revenue or donations to your organization over time. Because if it's got to work in 3 months, I don't want a part of that culture. That's
Mhm.
stressful, man. Although I like, the accountability, but 3 months to stand up an organization and get this done, I just,
Yeah,
it's
there's
just
so much,
not.
like, especially on in the startup thing or something like that. You may be able to make a lot of growth in a short period of time if you have a good foundation already set up. But most of the time, there's a lot of fixing the cracks in the foundation, right? Or
Yeah.
establishing a foundation.
Yeah. And, and pivoting and seeing what's
Mhm.
resonating, with sort of the vision as the backdrop. Like, it takes probably 6 to 9 months from the time I really understand my vision, 6 to 9 months for you to actually believe it. And so, like, if we're gonna work on your vision, stand up the organization, bring everybody in, it's gotta work in 3 months.
I,
It's just not workable.
I think this is a great pivot place, and this is probably the question. Well, I'll have one more question after this, but this, I'm glad everybody stuck around for this part because usually we ask this secret question much earlier in the episode. But I think this is a great place to ask this. So, your secret question is: what is the secret to creating a powerful vision?
Hang on, drive it, be rigorous, be detailed. It's like I call our R7 framework a process. It's not a program because you have to have room for the Holy Spirit. You got to have the room for prayer. You got to have room for it to breathe. And so in a process, you're allowed to breathe. So when you're talking about a vision statement, there are certain um, there's a certain feeling you're gonna get from it, and it either happens one or two ways. You come up with it, "This is it, I'm done, let's drive it for the next 3 to 5 years," or, you come up with it and go, "I don't know," and then you start using it, and it changes a little bit here and there, and then after 6 to 9 months, it's okay, it's solidified. So, I would have a long-term growth mindset when I look at this, and be patient, and be mindful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. This has been so good. Is it okay to call you Dr. Dave?
Yeah, Doctor Dave, some of my buddies call me Super Dave, so, it's
Oh,
whatever, man.
Super Dave. That
Yeah.
was a throwback. Was that like somebody that was on a motorcycle? I don't know. It seems like there was a
Yeah,
Super
Super
Dave
Dave
in history.
Osborne. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you again. And we do ask one last question of every guest on the show. And that's because I feel like I don't want to leave any stone unturned, any wisdom left on the table that you wanted to pass along. So, with that being said, the question that I'd like to ask you, is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't already share already with the audience?
Yeah, if you're listening to this, we talked a little bit about the toxic motivators. I'd encourage you to go to plantowintoday.com. It's a free assessment on which toxic motivator is um is is holding you back. In that, there's if you leave your email, there's an automatic email drip campaign that will do a 5-day devotional for you based on your toxic motivator. And so, um, I love that because it's real, it's applicable, it's free, and it's something that you can, make a change today with it. So,
Awesome. Yes. Make sure to go check that out. That link will be below. Also, where else can they find out more about M is Good, or what else you have to offer?
yeah, you can go to plantowin.com and I'm sorry, if you can go to emisgood.com and click on the chat, and you can find us there.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dave. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
Amen.
Thanks for checking out the Profitable Christian Business Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and share.